Hey guys, good morning. So I said I was going to rant a little bit about meat processing plants, and I am only because uh, me and Chris have made a conscious decision to start buying from a local butcher where they process all the meats right there at the butcher. And there's a reason for that. I had seen a thing on it. They primarily focused on a few different plants, but I'm one of them was Tyson, and the other one was I want to say JMT. Anyhow, one's pork processing, and the other's chicken, and it wasn't about how they treated their animals, but how they treated their employees, and not their office workers, people at their corporate office. Um, Watching the thing I watched, they actually treat their corporate office people fairly good. Now, I'm sure they would tell you if talked to outside of work. I'm sure, like any business, there's their pros and cons to everything. But the way they treat their people in their processing factories was just horrible. Um, and they kind of trap these people. And this relates back to my trying to bring awareness to social equality. The things that they talked about and they showed, for example, let's just talk about during the pandemic. They were all about, well, we're taking care of the people in our processing plants. We're setting procedures up that will help that. Yet, you know, they keep their employees very close together as part of the processing process. And that I kind of get under normal times. But it ended up with 57,000 production line employees in these companies in the U.S. getting sick. Now out of 320 million people in the U.S., that's probably not a lot. It's a drop in the well, but that's a lot of people in any given industry. I don't care who you are. They even had 283 deaths out of that, which one of them, one of the very first people to die of COVID in the processing plants, the family ended up having to sue to help pay for funeral expenses based on the fact the company said that that wasn't a work related death. Yet within a month after that, they had to shut the plant down because people were getting so sick and more employees had died. So I kind of struggle with that a little bit. But one of my other concerns is like with chicken processing. The breakdown of chicken from beginning to end, they do 35 to 40 chickens a minute with people standing within 6 inches apart of each other. There are, well, I wrote a lot of this down, mostly based on the fact that there was just A, so much information, and B, it really, my mind is not, I have brain fog in the worst sort of way. Not sure exactly what has brought it on, but it is there and it's real. But their injuries, workplace injuries, are one of the highest in the nation, and it's to the point where, on an average year, there is somebody in a processing plant going to the hospital every other day. And that doesn't include people who are getting hurt that are in house, because depending on what state you're in, your processing plant is in, you may not be required to go to the hospital for a workplace injury if you can go to the first aid station and talk to the nurse instead, which they prefer. Um, there is so much legal loopholes and workarounds for people getting injured in this industry. It's unbelievable. Um, they're the reason why they're getting hurt the way they are. A good portion of the reason is they're standing so close together that they are actually getting cut by the person working next to them, not intentionally, but the way they swing their knives to cut, because this isn't an automated process. It takes tons of workers to do this. they stand so close together that it's not uncommon for them to get cut and hurt enough that they potentially go to the hospital for it. But some processing plants actually ask you to sign a waiver saying that you won't sue them or come after them for ongoing treatment related to the injury that you had on hand. They talk about one guy who actually had smashed both his hands, and they had him sign this paper by putting the pen in his mouth to sign it. And their only other alternative before receiving treatment than signing that paper is to go get treatment at the hospital and either pay for everything out of pocket or sue the company, which could take years to get those wages and the cost of a lawyer and all that. So, and a lot of this they get away with because of where they put their plants. They put their plants in areas of poverty where they know people need jobs, and that may be the only job in town, or someplace where immigrants are prominent, because it's like a don't ask, don't tell policy, and that comes with all of it. And I get it. At times they may struggle to get employees, because let's be honest, most of us are pretty lazy and we don't want to work hard for a living. That's a different topic for a different time. Very much so, because I have a whole other thing I could talk about with that. But so, they put them in a lower income or impoverished area, which is, there used to be a time in life when a factory would build a town. The rail industry did that all the time. Putnam rail cars, which were huge in 150 years ago, but in order to ensure that their employees kind of came to work and had a good, healthy lifestyle, they did it for the right reasons initially. Would build towns around their factories, with movie theaters and grocery stores and, nice little houses and a school system. They would literally build a whole town, and everybody in the town worked for that company, in one capacity or another, or they worked at the corner at the store or whatever. But it was all based around that industry. And that wasn't uncommon. That's how a lot of small towns got their start. But now these factories looked for poor, impoverished towns where they could get a good tax break for bringing jobs in, and then trap these people into working for them. And of course, they don't want to say anything if they get hurt or injured, because then they can lose their job. And then where would they be? Right back to square one in a town who is struggling financially to begin with. It's just a poor town. It's one of those rich get richer, poor get poorer things. And it didn't really surprise me that this happens. I even kind of knew this happened, but I didn't know it to the extent. I actually watched a guy in a pork processing plant stop working for 2 seconds so he could pee on the floor, because for whatever reason he felt like he couldn't go to the bathroom. That tells me that he would have probably got yelled at for going to the bathroom. So he peed on the floor. Now, granted, the employee ended up getting in trouble for it, but what gave him that mindset to begin with? They even had managers who were placing bets at the beginning of the pandemic on how many people would get sick and how many people would die in their plants. That was they took a pool up, to win a prize. That's just, horrible. And that's like, you could say to yourself, well, don't they report their injuries and these things to OSHA? Well, as far as injuries go, most state laws, Texas is one of them, but they say you only have to report injuries to OSHA if you go to the hospital, which means if they can keep it in-house at the nursing station where there's a nurse who can patch them up and move on, they don't have to report that injury. And of course, if you report to OSHA, that could inadvertently lead to your your termination by the company. Unfortunately, they frown upon that, and they will find a way to weasel you out. They had an OSHA inspector, this is true, come into a processing plant where there was a fire, and the plant manager asked the OSHA inspector to put a paper bag over her head so she didn't see all the violations as she was walking through to look at the part of the plant that caught fire. That should be a big red flag in itself. But, and I don't know where it went from there, but I know that happened. Another thing and this is something Tyson's doing in Texas. I'm going to read my notes real quick. And it says, according to Texas law, you can opt out of workman's comp as a business to write your own rules. And manufacturers have lobbied for laws to make it hard to get unemployment. And this was Tyson, mostly down in Texas. They're opting out of workman's comp, so they don't even have to pay for the workman's comp. They'll make another deal with you. Which was also part of, and to make the laws harder, but by eliminating workman's comp and giving you other compensation, they could say, here's $500 because you just broke your leg or whatever. But you have to sign this waiver first. And that's just taking advantage of your employees, hands down. But these things, that that I've learned, between the company can work, states are letting these employees not have to, the states are letting these companies not have to pay into workman's comp and letting them do their own deals. The fact that these companies make you sign a waiver before you get treatment when you were hurt, so they don't have to report to OSHA when there's an accident. The fact that they are pushing their employees to move so much product that it's causing them injuries, enough that across the meat manufacturing and production industry, somebody's going to the hospital every other day with an injury that serious. We made the conscious effort, and I know it doesn't sound like I'm mad, but I really had a week to think this thing through, and getting mad doesn't serve a purpose. But the fact that all this is happening, the best way I can think of to show my support for these employees who are not being treated equally, and in many ways, not just for their health and benefits, but, I think the meat manufacturers are under the impression that because a lot of their people are immigrants, legal or otherwise, that they can get away with this, which all of this is a form of social inequality. And because of that, me and Chris and our family are no longer going to support the commercial meat industry. I hope everybody feels this way. Now, that being said, or at least starts to feel this way, that being said, I get that going to a butcher costs more. I get that. And that it can be expensive. And for those that can't do that, I understand. I would never shame somebody else for buying a product because, that's what they can afford. You feed your family. Family comes first, no matter how you feel about a situation. If that's what you can do, that's what you can do. But we do a little better with that. So you do what you can. Now we go to a butcher to buy all our stuff, a local butcher where all the meat is raised locally, slaughtered humanely, processed humanely, and it's fresh. It's actually much better. You don't have to worry about all the things that can come with processed meats. Um, and that's our decision. But I thought you should know I'm trying to spread the word on how these people are being treated in their factories. All right. Well, that was my 15-minute rant. I know I didn't sound very angry or just go get them, but like I said, I've already been mad about it, but I wanted to, now it's my job to inform. You know, you don't have to stay mad, just stay informed. All right. I love you. I will talk to you later. I hope you have a great day. Tell somebody else you love them, and it'll make their day a little better. I guarantee it. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.